Alaikum salam, everyone. Well, I am Oscar Grant's uncle. He was my very first nephew. And I think before I actually tell what happened, I'd like to say first to the organizer of the event, of course, specifically you, Misha, thank you for inviting me over here to share, and all those that's been working with you to have this done. It's been, I have to say, really tremendous in the respect that one of the main questions that is always asked is what and how to get people mobilized to understand that there is a need for revolution. And I think the ways that was most profoundly shared tonight through the art of music, Fly Benzo, thank you. I want to commend Fly Benzo for using his cell phone to identify an issue and to begin to record, and that's been his experience now with this racist system when it comes to bringing forefront their wrongs. Of course, the gift of the rap consciously, revolutionarily changing us, transforming us to hear the need to change through your art and music, and just being an activist, thank you. Of course, you, Misha, thank you for being a forerunner, I have to say, for tasers here in San Francisco, because as we know, Johannes Mehserle, who murdered Oscar, said that he meant to use his taser, right, and mistakenly pulled his gun instead. Had he used his taser, Oscar would still be dead today. Yeah. So there's no excuses for what happened on that platform. Yeah. And of course, my sister to the right, Danica, my dear sister, much love to her for being a strong mother. She went right to where her son was murdered and began to feed the homeless.
Yes.
Powerful, because it's there how we begin to bring to the consciousness of people the pain that we're experiencing in these streets. And so that's powerful in itself, because it is about transforming us to a degree so that we can see the need to change, because what's happening in our society is so heinous and so blatant that if we continue to sleep, our babies will not have a chance to live a life that would be free to just simply live, to simply go out. So what happened with Oscar, on December 31st, my sister Wanda, Oscar's mother, it's her birthday. And so being at, of course, my mama's house, Oscar's grandmother's house, celebrating his mother's birthday, he was there, his fiancée, Safina, his daughter, and just having a good time with his mother, and she told him, Oscar, I know you're going out, please take BART. It'll be the safest way to get to San Francisco, see the fireworks, and come home. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine, it's hard for her many a nights when she thinks about instructing her son to catch BART. But being a good son that he is, he did exactly what she suggested. And so he got all his friends together, and they went on over to San Francisco, of course, enjoyed that stay, and on their way back, he got into a little tussle with a friend of his from the neighborhood, this white kid. They resolved it, right? It wasn't like a fight, but somebody on the train, he called the train agent and said that there was a gang fight, Hispanic and blacks fighting on the BART train. Okay, so now we have a lie. And so immediately the train operator is required to report that, and so of course the BART police at the Fruitvale BART station was instructed to hold the train, to identify, to see if anyone has been hurt, to verify this gang fight. Of course, Oscar and his friends getting off the train, Tony Peroni, the officer, the first one on the scene, sees these young men. Now here we go, the stereotype, the suspicion, because they all were basically wearing hoodies, dressed in black and brown, just together, and just having a good time, not expecting to run into this individual that they did that night to experience what happened. And so, of course, Tony Peroni, as many of you know that watched the video, went into this rage and instructed the young men to the platform to go against the wall, which they did, came on the BART train and pulled Michael Greer off, who was wearing dreads. And Tony Peroni testified it was a hair takedown move that he did when he pulled Michael Greer off the train by grabbing him by his dreads, tripping him, and forced him to the ground where he hit his nose on the platform, concrete, busted his nose. And of course, Oscar and all his friends are like, what the heck, what is this? Well, you know, hey, we haven't done anything, you know, and then they get upset because they speak into this very issue. They protest it. They're doing exactly what we need to do today. And that is, we cannot sit back and allow a wrong to continue to happen, because if we do, we fail in our responsibility to support and protect our children and to keep them with the rights that they need in the society to be able to. We have an obligation to protect them, and that's what they did. They stood up and they spoke on behalf of their friend that was being abused. And of course, as you know, and I'm going to try not to talk all the way in detail, but it eventually led to Oscar's death. But right before he was murdered, of course, he was punched. He was called a bitch-ass nigger twice. He was kneed in the groin, in the stomach. Eventually, Tony Baroni told Mehserle he's going to jail. And of course, they threw him to the ground. Oscar falls first on his back. As he rolls over, his arms are pinned under his body. Tony Baroni is 6'1", 250 pounds. You could tell he was eating a lot of steroids. He was pushing Oscar's face through the concrete with his knee on his neck. Oscar was saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. When we saw Oscar's body, the whole side of his left face was fractured. The bones was actually crushed in his face. I mean, he was brutalized before he was murdered. You know, it was like, what happened? Mehserle is 6'7", 270 pounds. He's on Oscar's back. Oscar's pinned, his arm is pinned under his body. Carlos Reyes is hollering, he's on my legs, he's on my legs. Oscar's saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Tony Baroni then switches his position and put his left knee on Oscar's neck, continued to push his head down. Oscar was able to bring his arm from underneath his body to his back, crisscrossed his arms to be handcuffed. Then Mehserle stands up and shoots him in the back. And then says, I thought he was reaching for a gun. I thought he was reaching for a gun. The Taser story never came out until he got his attorney, Michael Raines, who concocted the story about a mistaken pulling the weapon instead of his taser. And as we know, Oscar was shot center mass in the back. The bullet hit the concrete, came back up, penetrated his lungs. He then turned to Tony Baroni and said, you shot me. You shot me. Like, why? I hadn't done anything. You know, and all before his death, he said, listen, I have a baby. I want to go home. Everybody calm down. He was the peacemaker on that platform. Everybody calm down. You know, we're going home tonight. You know, I have a baby, Tatiana. He had promised her that he was going to take her to Chuck E. Cheese that next morning. But as we know, Oscar died on that platform. This event today is significant to us because October 22nd, as you know, is National Police Brutality Day. Right. You know, and so we was able to speak to the issue of police brutality. November 5th is this historical day for the first time that a police officer in the state of California was actually charged, arrested, and convicted of murder. And I mean, this is important because it does not happen. In the history of the state of California, it has not happened. Give an example really quickly. Chicago, 85 officers were under investigation for shootings. Only one was actually considered in charge for that shooting. In Arizona, it has the highest rate of police shootings in the 10 largest cities in the United States. Out of all the shootings, only one officer was found guilty, and it was an officer for killing a white woman. As we can see, and how important this is, we can tell the stories of what happened, but more importantly, we gotta convince the people in our society, in our community, that are experiencing this, and those that are not experiencing this, how important it is that we come together, that we unite, that we transform our minds to really see and realize that there is something heinous that is happening within this society, and that we need to rise up and begin to combat against it. But it's going to have to take some form of revolutionary change of transforming the mind to realize that this type of society that we're living in today is not conducive and healthy for us to even breed children into this world. So there has to be a change.
Hey, hey.